I am going to go ahead and reshare and also just pass the floor over to Michael. So, Michael, you raised your hand very quickly on the lightning talk suggestion. So, I'm just kind of grabbing from what you put on chat, the relationship between the quantum field and our physical body, with an emphasis on using quantum energy for manifestation, healing, and increasing love in the world. Who doesn't want to hear about that, right? So, with that, Michael, just wanted to thank you for your time here in giving us, a little bit some nuggets in terms of, what you're passionate about outside of work.
Yeah, so awesome. Thank you. As some of you know, my internet is down. We had a big freeze here, and I think it actually cracked the fiber optic cable going outside of our house. So you'll see a guy going back and forth. His name is Matthew. He's with AT&T. He's fixing the internet. So I'm in the
Oh no.
backyard where I have signal because my house, I have no signal in the house. So yeah, a lot of you know that I'm really passionate about employee experience. There's another area of my life that I spend a lot of time in that I really don't get a chance to visit with y'all, but that's this topic of quantum energy and the quantum field. And so I'm going to kind of start a little bit at the beginning, and it's going to be a little bit of a wandering path. So just bear with me. Um, what research has shown us is that there is such advantage in diversity of thought, diversity in background, diversity in life experiences and socioeconomic experiences that we have growing up. And the Dalai Lama states that um, any religion of origin has all of the answers that one might need to reach a state of enlightenment and of joy. And in the book that he co-authored with the Bishop Desmond Tutu, the title of the book is Joy. He really speaks about um, finding joy in life. And I was very blessed. As my friend says, I won the geographical lottery. I was blessed to be born in the United States. I was blessed to be born to wonderful parents who have their dysfunctions and but
Mm,
are just really amazing human beings. And to be born in a place where I felt really safe and loved the vast majority of the time. And I recognize very fully that that is not the life experience that many of us had. And
yeah.
I don't treat that with anything but as an extreme amount of gratitude that that was my experience. And so, if we look at what the kind of the outdated Maslow's hierarchy of needs, my first three were really covered. And so I felt I had a home to live in, I had food to eat, I had relationship and community. And so it afforded me the opportunity to spend quite a bit of time in the upper area of Maslow's hierarchy, which is really delving into um, uh, the area of self-exploration. And so I became very passionate about that very young. My mom's a professional speaker and trainer. She was also the first windsurfing instructor, certified windsurfing instructor in Texas. She's an amazing, adventurous woman who's traveled all over the world and hiked the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu through the mountains back in the day when people didn't do that. And my dad's a surgeon who also believes in the mystical realms. And so I just had this really cool upbringing. And I grew up in the Christian tradition. And when I was 18, I had the experience that in the Christian tradition, they call the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, which is a sort of this mystical experience of this. You literally feel like you're in this beam of light, and I just felt like I was being filled with this beam of light, and I came out of that experience, which was at the end of a 8-week Christian youth camp experience where I was a leader at the camp. That I had this experience, and it cemented in me this absolute knowledge that God was there and that God loved me and that God loved us and that wanted good things for us. And so I spent really the next, the rest of my teen years and my early years, I did a lot of work just around like personal development. I mean, everything from Zig Ziglar to Brian Tracy, just sales training and trying to become better at my craft, but really understanding the human condition, which led me to really exploring my faith. And I spent about 4 years, and actually cooperation with my dad, going back and forth studying most of the world's religions, in addition to Christianity. We're really outside of Christianity, and trying to understand where people were coming from and what these other religions believed in their foundations. And then that led me to, okay, now I really want to understand actually not what the Episcopal Church, which I grew up in, says about what God said and what Jesus said and what the Bible's all about, but spent about 8 years studying the Bible just so I could understand what actually was said, what happened, whether you believe that the Bible is a really nice story or you believe that it's a historical document of what actually happened. We could have a conversation about that. But I believe that it was a story of fact. And so I started digging in, like, okay, how did this work and what happened? And it led me down the path of how did how did Jesus heal people? And if he says that we can heal people and that we can use the same gifts that he had, how does that actually happen? And whether you believe that Jesus did miracles or not, you may have experience where suddenly people who have stage 4 cancer don't have cancer anymore. And the doctors say, well, that's not possible. And then people say, well, it's a miracle because it's something that occurs outside of what could be possibly explained by, just the regular things. And so all of that background to lead up to, like, how does this relate to quantum? So Newtonian physics is the exploration of the physical world and the way that the physical world interacts with amazing things like gravity and time and our cell structure. And so it really delved into, and we all were taught, in as a young person, that there was a cell and the cell had a wall and there was a neutron inside there and a proton and an electron, and they did amazing things together. And it was like this tiny little machine inside of our body, and there was gazillions of them, and they were constantly dying off and being replaced, and that sometimes they went bad, went in a poor direction, and that turned into cancer. And sometimes that cancer was, most of the time, was taken and control of by the body and eliminated, but then sometimes it didn't, and sometimes people got really sick and they died. And so there was this Newtonian, the body as a machine world. But what was actually happening below that, and what we haven't really had the ability to dig into until most recently, but that going back 100 years was talked about, was that there was this other thing, that there were smaller pieces, smaller than an electron, that were actually interacting with our body. And when we look at an electron, if you took a neutron, which is one of the components inside of a cell, and the neutron was the size of a Volkswagen, then an electron would be the size of a pea. So that gives you a comparison, like these tiny things that are inside of a cell. If a neutron was a Volkswagen, an electron would be a pea. That's how small they are. But the space inside an electron is 99.999999% empty space. And so it begs the question, well, what's inside that space? Like, what's going on inside of there? And what they've recently been able to determine with very specific, very detailed scientific instruments is that it's actually energy. And that energy is what's referred to as quantum energy. It is the particles that are below the physical manifestation of particles of energy that is inside of everything. And so if an electron is 99 and 6 nines after that percent space, what about our body? Well, our body is actually the same. And so we're really not a physical thing. We are an expression of energy that appears as a physical thing because of the way that it's organized. And there's a whole lot of super depth that goes behind that. And I could talk to you about for hours about that, but I don't have that time. But what we also know, and has now been proven through science, because they have instruments to prove what people believed or thought what they thought, is that that energy can be interacted with. And negative thoughts and negative emotions operate at a vibration or a frequency that is actually damaging to our cells. And
Mm,
positive thoughts like love is actually one of the highest, gratitude is the
mm,
highest, love is right below that, operate at a high frequency that actually causes growth and healing. And so when we live in a space of love and in gratitude, we actually are healing the frequency of the energy that we are bringing through our body through those emotions, because emotions are expressed energy. And those emotions then actually heal our body and
mm,
create positive energy in the world. And we create an energy field around us that through training can get larger and larger and larger. But that energy field, um, we can encompass other people into that field, and we can interact with other people through that field of that energy. Now, shame is actually the worst energy, and it's at the lowest frequency,
mm,
and is very, very damaging to our cell structure and to our health. Um, and it is through the knowledge that these emotions actually affect our health and actually change the expression of our genes to cause illness, and dis-ease causes disease, that we actually learn
yes.
that not only is being in a state of shame bad for our health, it actually creates negativity in a broader sense in the world around us. So I'll pause there. Angela, you got your hand up.
Yeah,
And I made
I
you over
just thought,
time.
you know, that just fascinating stuff. I feel like we can go on forever for sure.
Has it been
But
5 minutes?
yeah, if you don't mind, I'm gonna pause us so that we can spend the
Sure.
last 20 minutes of our call on some of the other agenda topics. But
Yes, absolutely.
fascinating indeed. And I think this is exactly what we want to hear, like just tidbits and
Cool.
nuggets that will want us to learn more. So I will absolutely be hitting you up for more information on this topic, and for folks who want to know more as well. I'm sure Michael wouldn't mind
Yeah.
talking to
And
you
I've
all
great
offline.
some great book recommendations and some podcast recommendations that if you're
Cool.
interested in this journey that we can go down. Thanks for the time.